Thank you very much. Thank you for the warm welcome. And first, let me send warm greetings from the Center for International Law at the National University of Singapore, and also from our Center Director, Dr. Nilufer Oral, who is currently away on other engagements. It is, of course, with our regrets and our apologies that we're not able to join in person at this very important proceedings. But allow me to first congratulate Durham University for this, and of course, my good friend, Professor Petra Merup and her team, for this very timely and very ambitious Just Now project. The Center for International Law is absolutely delighted to be one of the supporting institutions on this important journey. Since 2022, the Center for International Law and the Center for Sustainable Development Law and Policy have, under the framework of our MOU partnership, produced meaningful collaboration through joint events, research, and submissions, which have showcased the value and the criticality of a holistic, interdisciplinary approach to addressing the climate crisis. This has included a joint submission along with the International Cryosphere Climate Initiative as part of the global stocktake process under the Paris Agreement. We have also hosted an official side event at COP28 in Dubai alongside partners for the finance and investment sector, this completely private sector. We have also co-hosted a number of conferences, both in Durham and in Singapore, and most recently, last month, being the Climate Change Conference Post-Global Stocktake and the Road to 2028. And this was a conference in Singapore. And we had witnessed firsthand at this conference how much the conversation and the ideas are enriched, really truly enriched, through a gathering and synthesis of perspectives from diplomats, public policy decision makers, economists, legal profession of varying disciplines, scientists, private sector, civil society, and philanthropy. We intend to and will continue to deepen and to expand such cooperation to include other partner institutions under our ASEAN Universities Climate Change Network initiative, which aims, among others, to develop and to promote interdisciplinary research on climate change, and also to elevate the ASEAN perspectives in climate change discourse and research. I was much inspired, I must say, by the thought-provoking presentations yesterday, which have ranged from the precepts of climate justice from a global South perspective to principles drawn from religious teachings, the dynamics of critical mineral supply chain, and ideas for reform of the investment agreements and regime, among others. It's a really, truly rich discourse. And the challenge and the goal for us is to leverage on these conversations, move past the current geopolitical divisions, and deploy our collective applied interdisciplinary research towards
ancient Rome.
Sorry,
Singapore.
Where's
Okay, sorry, that was just in some instruction. Let me continue. The challenge and the goal for us is to leverage these conversations past current geopolitical divisions and deploy our collective applied interdisciplinary research towards tangible, substantive, sustainable, and just solutions for the decarbonization of economies and societal well-being for present and future generations, as what this conference program has declared. As eloquently described by the UN Secretary General, Mr. Antonio Guterres, during his special address on climate action on World Environment Day this June, the need for action is unprecedented, but so is the opportunity, not just to deliver on climate, but on economic prosperity and sustainable development. So linking this to the theme of this afternoon's workshop panels, what needs and opportunities lay ahead for interdisciplinarity for climate justice in a post-advisory opinion world? Perhaps the first question, or the prior question, is what significance and implications of this, right? First being the ITLOS advisory opinion. What is the implication and significance for governments, corporates, and civil society? On this, I am extremely conscious that Professor Wolfram would have provided a masterful overview of the advisory opinion this morning. I would only offer brief observations. And what was notable was the tribunal's exercise of systemic integration, bearing in mind the scientific developments and the broader international legal order, while providing clear interpretations of the UNCLOS and its reasoning regarding the relationship between the UNCLOS and the UNFCCC and the Paris Agreement. Among others, the ITLAWs established that greenhouse gas emissions are a form of marine pollution, provided more stringent requirements for environmental impact assessments, strengthened the role of land-based activities in marine environment conservation, and clarified that adaptation is an integral part of the obligation to protect and to conserve the marine environment. The tribunal also pronounced on the application of the common but differentiated responsibility principle in the context of states' obligations under Article 1941 of the UNCLOS, thereby ensuring that developing states are not disproportionately burdened by additional obligations, but rather promotes an equitable and realistic approach. From a process angle, the advisory opinion also demonstrated the inclusive nature of the proceedings, with opportunities for NGOs and IGOs to make amicus curiae submissions and to bring the strength of the span of sectorial and multidisciplinary expertise to bear. For governments, the decision is certainly significant for domestic, regional, and international policy making, and certainly as well for climate litigation. For governments update their next round of NDCs, how will policy decision makers take reference to the tribunal's opinion, as well as the expected future ICJ advisory opinion in their internal deliberations, particularly in terms of the range of expertise and stakeholders consulted? Indeed, as the title of the next panel highlights, how do the classical principles of state responsibility, precautionary principle, and due diligence operate in tandem with the principles of CBDR, which are more familiar to legal advisors in the climate and sustainable development space? This deliberation cannot take place in a philosophical vacuum, and more than ever needs to take into account multifaceted considerations, including science, economics, and notions of equity and justice. During last week's Climate Change Week in New York, it was observed that many events actually spotlighted the intersection of climate action and social justice and the need for a deep focus on inclusivity. So what combination of experts and stakeholders should be exampled to guide that holistic and comprehensive evaluation? From the perspectives of corporates, the advisory opinion may well expand the scope of sustainability reporting requirements, such as the requirements of the EU's Corporate Sustainability Due Diligence Directive for affected companies, and require them to look into the impact of their activities on the marine environment. This points to the need to invent and deploy emerging technical solutions that can yield such transparency and track the carbon intensity of traded goods. What combination of strategists, professionals, and experts should be assembled? In the case of companies, to guide the design, the implementation, and the communication of the climate positive strategies and actions. And in the case of civil societies and NGOs,
as you conclude.
Sure, to monitor, track, and hold corporates to account for the climate impact. And finally, thinking ahead to the second panel this afternoon, the pivotal role of advances in attribution science is an increasingly important transformative feature of climate litigation that can provide scientifically robust evidence for legal proceedings and also increase our knowledge of the nexus between climate change, human activities, and the resulting impact and effects, and ultimately contribute to climate justice. The Union of Concerned Scientists in this regard released studies in November of 2023 that provide regional source attributions for US forest fires, linking nearly 40% of the total area burned by forest fires in Western US and Southwestern Canada to the carbon emission produced by 88 major fossil fuel producers and cement manufacturers. So I will conclude my brief remarks here and look forward to hearing the experts in the next two panels. Thank you very much.